What are we doing here?
You were pretty done in the evening, too.
Oh, this is a conf grenade.
It is.
Oh, mine conf grenade.
Oh, actually...
It's March 6th, 2012.
This is the Idle Thumbs Conf Grenade for GDC 2012, the first one. I'm Chris Remo.
And I'm Sean Vanneman.
I'm Steve Gaynor.
I'm Jake Rodkin.
And I'm Nick Breckon.
Oh,
Whoa! Whoa! Surprise!
There are too many of us in this room.
Yeah, there really are.
I'm sorry we all had to come into your hotel room, Nick.
That's okay.
I apologize.
I don't.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
Welcome back, Nick.
Thanks.
Forever.
Fuck you.
Whoa!
Off to a good start. So how'd you guys all like the Game Developers Conference that you all attended today?
We developed a game. Jake
Yeah,
and I did.
I participated in the G&D of
We
Game Developers
conferred
Conference
between
today.
3:30 and 4 o'clock
That's
with
true.
Mark and Dennis.
I developed a game today. I conferred for a half hour in a meeting room. I did not attend the Game Developers Conference.
But you achieved, in the spirit of things, you probably were conferring about video
Let me
games
put it
more
this
than
way,
any
Steve.
of us.
I developed way more games than anyone developed at Game Developers Conference.
Yeah.
Except for those people who made a game today, probably. At some session or
There was
another.
probably a jam going on,
Yeah.
let's assume. I've been enjoying it. if the people who actually went to it should be involved with this discussion of it.
What did you enjoy?
Well, I've been going to the Indie Game Summit.
Yeah.
And it's cool. Like it's just a single
I
track
agree.
thing, so it's not. My normal GDC experience is like, I have to pick between all the 20 things that are going on, but the Indie Game Summit is just like, talk by this guy, talk by this guy.
Is this your first year doing a summit thing?
I did the game design workshop one year,
Oh, I
but
did.
yeah, I haven't gone to one of these things before. It's been really interesting because you went to a bunch of the same talks I did, Chris.
I did, yeah. I probably went to about half the ones you went to. I
Oh,
think.
okay.
Yeah.
Were there any that stood out to you?
I like Brendon's.
Yeah.
Our-
But you're biased.
I might be biased. Our buddy Brendon Chung, Gravity Bun, and obviously 30 Flights of Loving, gave a talk today about the development of Atom Zombie Smasher, which one of the things I thought was really interesting about it actually is that he talked about how Atom Zombie Smasher was a prototype that he started developing actually before he made Flotilla or Air Forte or his other commercial games that he made and wasn't really able to complete in a way that he wanted to. So he made these other two games, and then years later it came back to Atom Zombie Smasher, which came out last year. And like as far as I can tell, it's been his most successful game. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
As a finalist in the
were the
IGF.
things that were holding him up technical proficiencies, or just sort of like financial, or
there was a combination of technical and design elements. It seems like where, first of all, as just a self-taught programmer, there were a lot of inefficiencies in the way he was coding his game, and the framework he was using to build it, which ended up becoming sort of refining itself over the course of several games. He's basically just been building on this code base he has from game to game to the point where now he says it's fairly refined and robust.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. I mean, I guess a little bit. It's interesting to think of Flotilla and Atom Zombie Smasher being built on the same technical
Because
bed.
one of them's 3D, one of
Yeah,
them's 2D.
they don't seem on the surface to have a whole lot in common.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool because it seems like he had this idea of Atom Zombie Smasher when he was relatively new to doing he had done a bunch of mod stuff before that, but
He
actually
made Gravity Bone before that.
yeah, but actually building the tech from the ground up and basically it seemed, I mean, he had a whole slide about it, so he acknowledges this. His Atom Zombie Smasher was kind of his first failure, he just didn't architect it right, and then he learned how to do it better to the point where he could come back to it, and that's cool. It really just, it sort of demonstrates how that idea was clearly legitimate in his mind, where it's, it kept coming back to him over the years, even though it wasn't a success at first, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I agree. And there was some interesting stuff in there about, I've always compared that game to XCOM for a lot of different reasons. I mean, most obviously the distinction between the world map and the resolution of battles, in this sort of tactical space.
Yeah.
And one of the things he pointed out is that he was very influenced by XCOM as well as other games. And when he was his first take on the game, the world map had a much more complicated set of mechanics associated with it, where all the different regions had all these different numbers corresponding to the scale of the invasion and the various factors that would influence the battle and all this different shit. And
how many scientists there were in every region and how many civilians, and you could move them around and all this shit.
And it was just really overwhelming. And it took, he talked about how being the entire development team, it was really hard for him to have that ability to look at his work objectively and realize what was not fun about that. He just thought it was. He was like, "Oh, this is great! I've got all these numbers in here.
Move all these things around."
And he kept giving it to people who just thought it was not fun at all. Yeah. And he just couldn't put those pieces together in his mind.
It kind of seemed like one of those things where he implemented it all, and he's like, "Yeah, this is exactly what I imagined it would be like." So I'm really happy with it. Yeah. Which is really easy to do. Like this is exactly what I pictured. Oh no!
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes that's what always happens. Actually, I made exactly. Oh.
Whoops.
Well, I enjoy it secretly, but now I like it less now that other people have told me that it's bad.
Did you go stuff?
No, I just flew in.
Nick Breckon?
No. I will tomorrow, though, so I can talk about that tomorrow.
It's really compelling stuff, Nick. All the way here, man.
Yep, I know. This is what you people wanted. Sorry.
Well, this is the first. It's been pointed out. This is the first time since the live PAX cast that we did that all five of us have,
and only the second time ever.
Yeah. That all of us have been talking to a mic at the same time.
Well, also we so rarely get to all hang out.
It's true.
It's
a good point.
At this stage, it's really nice.
Because we all secretly hate each other, though.
Well, yeah.
So.
Well, all of us individually hate certain configurations of others of us. So it's okay for any certain combinations of three of us to hang out. Right. It's like one of those.
It's like a civilization diplomacy map where there's just like
lines.
There's like some people are like red lines, and then there's just me off.
If someone goes back and listens to the entire back catalog of Idle Thumbs, they could actually chart this out and they can figure out.
They can piece together the dining
chart
where Mr. Brown can't sit next to Mrs. Smith or whatever, except everyone just can't sit next to Nick Breckon.
Yeah,
right.
Well, and for me, the configuration I like is if all four of you guys are hanging out together and I'm just not involved.
That's the rarest configuration.
True, I guess.
Oh, Nick.
Yeah.
So did you find, did you pull, I mean, now that you're, I don't know, raise your right hand if you want me to talk about this on the cast, but did you find, now that you're off doing your own thing and sort of like starting to put the pieces into place to build whatever you're going to build, did you find today to be like inspiring in any certain way, or did you take from it something that like you're like, oh man, I'm really glad I'm here listening to this right now while I'm at the precipice of what I'm about to do?
I thought it was cool. I thought it was interesting. I left full-time employment in December, and so, I've been doing contracting stuff and whatnot, but I'm kind of at the very beginning of the path towards independent game development, and I've kind of become more and more interested in the indie scene over in recent years, because I don't know.
It's been pretty dull. I mean, nothing cool has come out. It hasn't been at all revolutionary.
Well, it's one of those things where it's hard to have the perspective to know whether I've been getting more interested because just more cool shit's been going on, or because my internal thinking has been changing. I think it's a little of both, where it's like really the scene has had even just more and more cool stuff coming out of it. I seeing that there were some really good talks that I thought were useful to keep in mind. Like one of the talks that was actually really good was the guy who made that game, Sissy's Magical Ponycorn.
Oh yeah.
And he did a short talk.
It's Untold Ent.
Untold Entertainment.
Yeah, I just know him
the Untold
on Twitter.
At
on Twitter.
Untold
He's
Ent.
Untold Ent.
Yeah, that's true. And then right after that was a talk about making trailers for your game, and they both were focused kind of a lot on promotion. Like trailer obviously is explicitly promotion, but then the Ponycorn guy, a lot of his story was just about like, I wanted to make this game with my daughter because I thought that would be really cool. But what was really important was like getting the word out to people and making something that people would be interested in and fostering that. And here's how I, achieved that. And it was just...
That's so funny because that game feels... The way that game sort of popped up in my brain or on my computer was... It felt almost by accident. That it was like
and
it almost felt like that a discovered thing as opposed to a promoted thing.
Yeah, that's what was interesting about it was like he was going to this game jam, and he was like, man, I'm going to be gone to this game jam for like a 4-day weekend and not be around my family. That kind of sucks. I should bring my daughter with me and we'll like make a game together. And so he did that, and he said, he just made the thing, and he said a journalist came up to him and was like, the headline 5-year-old girl makes video game is the kind of headline that a journalist would like die for. And he was like, huh. And so when he posted like a blog post announcing it, he used the headline 5-year-old girl makes video game, and it like went viral, And so it was the kind of thing where he made it for specific reasons that were personal to him and his family, but then he wanted people to actually play it. And so he did try to kind of present it in a way that would catch people's attention and make them actually examine it for long enough to become interested in it and pass it on. And
I love that. I loved playing that game. I loved it. I just had
adorable.
such a good
It was
time.
You beat it?
I did.
Oh man,
I beat
I
it.
did. Yeah.
I finished it. I
Well,
put
'cause
all the
there's
Ponycorns in the jars.
yeah.
Well, I mean, you're given such a clear goal, and
Find
every
all the
time you do,
Ponycorns.
step one.
Check.
But because of, how like the goal is ridiculous and the limitations on, you go make this game at a game jam, you just end up being forced to do a lot of things right, which is like feedback fast, move quickly. Like you're always sort of like gathering something, even if it's a joke.
Yeah.
And it's something that makes like.
Well, you can't sit
Classic
back and
adventure.
overthink things.
And those plot twists. What? There was that one.
When the orange guy had a ponycorn under him.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Oh man.
Didn't see that coming.
So they get you.
Spoilers, though. Sorry for those of you who haven't played the Ponycorn Adventure.
That game does a lot of things right. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So it is really cool just being in the environment with all the dudes that are just making shit happen, So I'm glad I got to be here for it for many reasons. GDC is just kind of cool to come with and hang out, but
great.
also, there's stuff that's relevant. How exciting.
How wonderful.
I know. And I'm
Nick, what
Breckon.
capacity are you here for? Any particular capacity, or only to absorb the magic?
I just wanted a sample of what this was like so that I can go back and be sad again.
Oh, we got that Nick Breckon on the cast.
Yeah, we want to share which one of the two.
No, actually, I feel really
We have
sick
to
right now,
tease out
so
the
I'm really tired.
appropriate personality.
So I'm not really bringing. And also, I didn't do anything.
Oh,
today.
it is like 2 a.m.
So yeah, I feel really terrible. But
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
yeah, no, it's okay though.
We can
no,
go to your room.
no, I'm enjoying this.
I just
As if a man on his if I was on my deathbed, this is like what I would want to occur. Like I just.
When you get diagnosed, you're not gonna barf.
This is
right?
the Last Supper.
I was sort of thinking, I was like, am I going to barf? I shouldn't barf in the direction of the mic.
I want to
but-
paint a picture here to the readers. We are arranged in sort of a semicircular arc
Yeah.
around the microphone, and
Yeah.
Nick is in the center of it,
Yeah.
painting this picture of, if I were on my deathbed, this is what I'd want to happen. So this is basically like the Last Supper, where we're sort of supplicating ourselves
Right.
to Nick Breckon as he dies, I guess.
Yeah.
The death of Nick Breckon,
Yeah.
it might occur. Yeah.
Episode title.
Yeah.
the last supper of Nick Breckon.
Life and Times.
Passion
Nick
of
Breckon.
Nick
The
Breckon.
last supper of Jack in the Box. It was. We all ate horrible food.
Did you eat Jack in the Box?
No.
Oh,
I didn't even get that. I didn't even
Well,
get
I'm
that.
just trying to diagnose
You all ate
you.
around me,
Yeah.
and then I.
I
Just,
ate sushi
Yeah.
from a former Jack in the Box.
yeah,
That's true. Everybody
That's-
ate from a Jack in the Box.
terrifying.
We once and future Jack in the Box.
It's a good podcast.
It's pretty good.
It sold sushi for about
I
a
thought
year
it was going
there.
to go one way. I thought there's some times on the thus far where I was like, oh man, we're pointed in the right direction, and then nope.
Can't have a thumbs happen.
Yeah.
I'm playing Grim Fandango for the first
Me
time
too. Oh, the first time.
ever. Yeah.
Really?
Swear to God.
How did that
yeah.
happen?
Yeah, I'm surprised.
I'll tell you how it
Considering you make
happened.
adventuring
Is Grim Fandango came out, and I played the PC Gamer demo disc of it, but I had a 486 at the time or something.
You
And
didn't have a graphics accelerator.
I don't
Because
know
I had
why.
that when that game came out, I couldn't play it because that was the first game I ever owned that actually required a graphics accelerator
Right,
card,
and
and I
It
didn't
doesn't
have
require one. It has a software renderer. It just
It
runs
does.
really bad.
Oh, then it didn't
Yeah.
run on my
Right,
computer.
Yeah,
so
it was
I
terrible.
couldn't play it, and then
Like it wouldn't even install on mine.
I don't think I got a new computer until I got like a Pentium 2, and then by that time, I didn't have any money, so I never played it, and it just
How
sat
far
there.
into it are you?
Oh, not very far. Mercedes just showed up and they locked me in that room, so I'm gonna get out of there probably. But yeah, it was funny. It's a game where I played it. I started to play in the evening, and it's hard. It's also like everybody has an opinion about that game, and everybody's told you how good that game is.
Yeah.
So you don't really have a lot of room to start kind of craft your own space with it, but you have. At least I have to. So I just like shut myself in a room or living room. I get like 5 minutes in, and I start like tap 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 down the hallway, and Nick's like, sorry, Jake's like, I think I heard the Grim Fandango music from the other side of the house. Like, yeah. And then I didn't have to kick you out of the room, but I was about to. She's like, did you go in the alley? Like, shut up. So you can't play in a LucasArts adventure game around Jake. But, I
What'd
mean,
they say?
Yeah.
it's funny it's been a long time since I played an adventure game with the LucasArts era, believe it or not. I guess we all group played Full Throttle once, but it was just we might as well just been watching Full Throttle the movie
because
we
just
click, next thing.
blast through that.
Whereas in this, I did get really frustrated,
Yeah, I was
but
gonna
then the
ask.
moment I solved one thing, I remembered why I liked adventure games and went
Yeah.
oh yes,
That's the classic arc,
Yeah,
the parabola of
just-
playing
and
it.
I mean-
sine wave.
Fuck.
Yeah.
This is the best.
Yeah.
But and it's a feedback mechanism that you're so you haven't experienced in so long that you forget what exactly is pleasurable about it.
Well,
But the moment it goes into cutscene mode, you're like, I'm being given my treat. I
Yeah,
completed my thing.
Grim Fandango is particularly, I think, a strong example of that. Especially more so than a game like Full Throttle. Those are both Tim Schafer's main games as project lead, and because Grim Fandango it's got that kind of sine wave of the valley of frustration and then the peak of that
Something the
reward
most
and
extreme
feedback.
adventure game that I've
except
ever played.
except that on top of that, in Grim Fandango, just the structure of that game means it on top of the little
There's
peaks
just
and
the-
valleys.
also
There's
there's
the
crazy
huge
act
rolling ones
breaks,
that all the
yeah.
little peaks and valleys exist on because of the act structures in
Because
that game, which
Grim Fandango is
themselves are
basically just 4 full throttles back to back.
exactly,
Yeah.
and each one of those act breaks is like this incredible just tsunami of a rush when you get a new one of those.
Yeah.
It's
Because
just
you're unlocking a whole world essentially.
exactly. And well, in all of those
You don't know what
cutscenes,
this is yet, Sean.
and all of the scenes when that happens are just magnificent.
Yeah.
Like the first one especially is just
Oh,
one of my
God.
all-time favorite
Yep.
scenes.
Yeah,
in
I'm
games.
coincidentally I'm replaying it as well, and I just hit that break, and it was
Yeah.
just like what? This is like
Well,
Residual VM happened to us, I think.
yeah.
Well,
yeah.
that plus the Double Fine Kickstarter making everyone talk about Grim Fandango a bunch.
yeah.
that's
There's probably a lot of people playing Psychonauts and Grim right now.
I may have talked about this on the podcast
Psychonauts.
before. I don't know.
Psychonauts.
What was?
Go ahead. It's fine. My original experience playing Grim Fandango was a particularly deep experience of that whole arc thing in my brain because when I played that game, I didn't have the internet in my house, and so I didn't have any way. I didn't have a hint book or anything, and every puzzle I had to solve by just working through it. And that game took me actually a full year to complete.
Holy
Yep.
shit.
I wasn't playing it every day, but
yeah.
I would go through these phases where I'd really get back into it for a few days or like a week or whatever, and I'd get a bunch of stuff, and then I'd hit a wall, and I would kind of get stuck, and I would just forget about it for a week or two, that game lasted me the better part of an entire year, and so it was sort of those little peaks and valleys, and then the bigger arcs, but just writ large across an entire year of my life, which at the age I was when I played it is a significant
It's a
year.
long
Like when
time.
you're young,
Yeah.
a year matters hugely in
It's a
terms of
formative
just
novel.
exactly like your personal ability to perceive the world and to draw meaningful connections between things that happen in a game and things in your life, especially because that game, there's so much melodrama in that game, and there's so much really deliberately heightened emotion and so on, and so that the experience.
So many giant cats driving back.
Exactly.
Yep.
But it was that, and that's the only adventure game though that I've ever had that experience with. I mean, it's really long. It's the longest adventure game I've played probably, and it's also the only one that I've actually stretched out across such a huge length of time. And inevitably, I can never have quite that same experience again, thanks to one, the internet, and two, just being an adult now.
They also don't make games
and they
like
just
that
don't make games
anymore.
like that, especially of that length. And so it
Or
was.
do they? I don't.
They don't.
Double Fine Kickstarter. Who knows? Maybe.
That game will
Huge.
The game will not be grim.
That would be a disaster if it were Grim Fandango length. But it was
a disaster.
I mean, it would just be the wrong way to spend their resources to make a 40-hour adventure.
Who are you to
game.
decide what they're doing?
Fair enough.
I mean, as a backer, you can contribute to the.
That's true. That would be my suggestion. Don't make this Grim Fandango length. The most pointless.
That comic shows up and you're just beaten into the ground by every other backer of that campaign.
Make it shorter. Shut up!
It was funny though because I played it for the first time ever Saturday night, and then Sunday I went to the office, and the first person I ran into was the CTO of Telltale, Kevin Bruner, who was the gameplay programmer on that game, and it's just
that's crazy to me.
Oh, it's absolutely crazy to me because I probably make games because of Full Throttle. That's the whole reason. I remember just being a kid in Wyoming, just playing Full Throttle.
Is my favorite game ever.
And I mean that's the whole thing. That put the pieces together. Went oh, I never knew what I'd be able to do in the game industry, but maybe there's something like this that I could do. There's something in here maybe that I could find a home.
Yeah.
But then to just literally the next person I see that isn't Jake is just. Like this wealth of knowledge about what was that experience like? Because obviously
did you interrogate him about it?
Well, one of the first things that you said was really like those walking controls.
And he just scowled at me for a minute.
No, he was fine with it.
But he did say, I mean,
that is why
I
I've never replayed Grim Fandango because I've tried and I'm like, holy shit.
You know what? It actually doesn't map.
Interface.
It doesn't map badly to a 360 controller.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. I've never
there's gamepad control.
I've never tried doing that, but I should. That's
is it 360 supported by residual VM on Mac?
It's not. But it's supported by the Grim launcher, so you can you can kind of hack that.
But not on OS 10.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Maybe there's a way to figure it out.
Yeah.
But I mean, well, it's just he's like, well, Tim really liked to play on the numpad, so the game plays pretty well on the numpad. You should try playing on the numpad. And we don't have a numpad on our lap board keyboard, but I've got a nice weird lobster claw thing that I've got going that I've now just
that specific story has way more impact on me than just and then I ran into the gameplay programmer. That's the kind of weird shit when you work in the game industry that you interact with. Not just I'm working with the guy who did the programming for this game. It's and he said Tim Schafer really liked to play it this one way while we were developing, so you should try that.
Yeah. What? That's probably the most supported way.
Yeah.
The way that's sort of 50% screened back in the manual and isn't on the control screen.
Right. Well, then our really good friend Chuck Jordan, who's been on Eltham's, right?
Yeah.
And
he was also a programmer on that game. I think.
He was also, so they were the three, there was somebody else, but those three guys definitely programmed a lot on the game, and everything that's sort of CPU clock related that causes massive bugs. And
those guys also screwed that up. So that's good.
Yeah, wasn't Chuck saying that he spent an entire day timing out the credits to
match up
with the music, but
and then found out after it shipped that the engine was timed to your CPU clock. So that's sweet.
It's ruined his life.
Owned.
But you can't not be ridiculously grateful to realize that you've wandered into a career where that just happens to you, and you go home and say, "Oh, that guy's a treasure of knowledge about," you're not going to get that anywhere else.
I mean, I feel like that's probably something that happens with a lot of, if you're in the music industry and you're a band that's recording, and it's definitely. The guy that's running the soundboard while we're recording our album in the studio was, the drummer, or whatever, it's what? Okay, so I'm working with a guy that, made all these albums that I grew up listening to when I was 12 or whatever, and I don't know, it's interesting.
Well, we all now have enough experience to where people who were formative game industry folks, well, at least you can make eye contact with them, right? But before that, the industry is so young that it's hard to get people who are in their late 20s and early 30s, and then have the next generation who have made the things that formed their opinions about the medium that they're in.
Yeah.
I feel very lucky to be part of that, I suppose. Yeah.
That was one of my first GDC experiences ever. Was I sat in on this round table. There was it's like a creative direction roundtable or something. And so I go in, and I'm in QA at the time, and this is like the first session I ever went to, and I just sat down in the corner, and a bunch of people come in and sit around at the table who are actually going to be like talking, and then one of them is just Will Wright, and I'm like, what? And so I'm sitting like 4 feet away from him on the floor, and the roundtable is going on, and someone else is talking. I'm just looking at Will Wright, just kind of like staring at him while he's like while he's listening to a speaker, and then he like looks over at me suddenly, and I'm just like, and like look away with shame. It was just one of those weird things where like, oh, this is what GDC's about. Will Wright looks at you.
During my first GDC is 2004, so this year is my 9th, and one of the first.
That's insane.
Yeah.
One of the first experiences I remember from that GDC was when it was still in San Jose, and so I was just walking down the street one night, in front of the place where they do the Game Developers Choice Awards, and I was just walking back to my hotel, and I was wearing my Corley Motors shirt from Full Throttle. It was an awesome shirt that doesn't have a LucasArts logo on it, doesn't have a game logo on it.
It's just the big motorcycle with
exactly.
all of the...
It's the CM logo.
But then on the back it has like the
has a bike.
Exactly. It has a picture of the bike, and the slogan "Can't beat a Corley." And I was walking down the street, and Tim Schafer just was walking the other direction on the street towards me, and I'm like, oh, in my brain I'm like, oh man, that's Tim Schafer. And then as we like reached each other, he was like, hey, Full Throttle, I made that game. I was like, oh my god. So I met him, and like I've known him ever since then.
So that's advice to everyone in the world: wear dorky shirts of things that you like, and then walk around where there's game developers conference. You'll stand out.
That's honestly though. That's. I don't know. If you see somebody wearing
it's
the
not
shirt,
that was sarcastic,
that is,
but it's also
no, that's so
it's
true.
totally real.
You will have a drink purchased by me. Yeah, absolutely.
If you're wearing a Corley Motors shirt, Sean Van will buy
I was coming back to Will Wright. I think we're listening to Will Wright. That was also the podcast that fostered. That was the first podcast I think it was on where the Phaedra stuff popped up. But that Will Wright talk from GDC 2010 was probably like the best moment I've had at GDC, like the best thing I've ever sat in and experienced at GDC.
It's the best experience I've ever had in my life.
Recently,
I can't think of anything.
There's really just nothing that it would ever could top that.
Sorry, honey. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
But
let's be honest, Phaedrus.
You should have seen this talk.
It was transcendent.
There was that Soviet space minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a good talk.
Will Wright.
I was ensorcelled.
It's funny. It's a funny thing about the way people talk and converse in the video game industry, and the way people give, GDC talks and addresses and things like that. There's a certain people in the games industry are incredibly smart. Like there are a ridiculous number of absurdly smart people in the games industry, and that's one of the reasons I like GDC so much. I mean, it's my favorite game-related week of the year, easily, by a long shot. But there's a certain kind of live spoken address style or something that is not very common in games. Mm-hmm. And it's the kind that Will Wright adopts. And it's the kind you see sometimes when given by a really interesting, eclectic professor or something.
Right.
There's a certain type of intellect that is, despite how many smart people there are in the games industry, there's a certain category of intellect that is just not very common in this industry for whatever reason, but Will Wright exemplifies. And you go see a talk by Will Wright, and the breadth of topics discussed and the depth with which each one is discussed is just something on another level. I mean, it's just something
it's
you just
unbelievable.
It might surprise you.
It might with a depth that will surprise you, yes.
Yeah. It is comparing it to the most engaging university professor you ever had or something like that. But talking about the thing that you've cared about your entire life, you get it felt like when you're in school, you get one of those a year, and then Will Wright can just produce one of those from wherever it comes from.
He's not talking this year, is he?
I don't know.
Phaedrus is back.
Yeah. Look for the The mysterious
effortless
speaker.
Look
I mean,
for the
I'm
most
sure-
boring sounding.
The future
talk.
of content.
The future of content.
Oh,
And
that's
the other one was
just getting
Metaphysics
spoiled.
of Game Design or something was his.
Oh yeah, Metaphysics of Game Design.
Yeah.
By Fabius.
That's the
Sounds
reason I
famous.
ended up reading Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. 'Cause
I'm
of
actually
the talk.
reading it right now. Which
Did
is,
you like it?
I'm about halfway.
We can
through
talk about books now. That's the
Sean
thing.
was
That's
like
on brand.
in love with that. You were in love with that book, didn't you?
I loved it.
I do like it. I'm only halfway through it, so I can't really make a full judgment on
The
it.
second half is when you love it.
I also started
Okay.
reading it the year I started riding a motorcycle. So it was just like
Last year.
yeah, 2011. Yeah, yeah. I got a
Yes,
motorcycle.
that's last
you
year.
can put it that way.
Confirmed.
But
I
not that
just
it had
checked my
anything to
account.
do with it, really. It does.
No, but I mean, I'm sure
metaphorically.
it. I mean, it gave you a little bit more of a direct connection to it because I have no physical
Well-
experience of doing anything to a motorcycle.
Well, there's a part in the book where he talks about this: your motorcycle is going to break down on you. It is going to leave you in the rain at the worst possible time, and you're going to be sitting on a giant, useless piece of metal and not know anything to. And if you're going to be one of two people, you're going to be the person who says, "Fuck this fucking thing, fuck it, like this thing's a useless piece of shit. I need somebody to fix it for me," or you're going to like understand that it's a machine that has all these interconnected parts that at each one of them has a specific purpose, and you can fix it and you can save yourself. And then I was reading that part. And it was 3 a.m. and my motorcycle broke down in the middle of the city. And I was like, fuck this motherfucking fucking thing! But I did find solace in the fact that I was in that part of the book. And then I came home, I finally got home, called my fiance at the time, and said, this happened to me. And she goes, well, you're reading that book, so you should really just relax about it.
Well, did it spur you to like become more knowledgeable about maintaining?
Oh,
a
absolutely.
motorcycle?
Yeah. Every single piece of wrenching I've done probably is because of that book's ability to implicitly shame you for not doing it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's cool and it's a really interesting just thought process to point out, which is like, yeah, you can be willfully ignorant about something because it seems hard, or you can just admit, yes, this is hard and I don't know anything about it,
Right.
and I'm going to take the first step.
That's sort of where he starts
to
the book.
become knowledgeable about it, so that in the future, because it's like no one's going to say that it's easy. It is complicated, and
Well, we should do things not because they're easy, but because they're hard.
In this decade.
Is there anything else?
Okay. Yeah, but he starts the book
well,
kind of defining those sort of two types of people as romantic and classic people.
But something that actually weirdly wraps back into a talk that we saw today. You were there for the QWOP talk, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It was,
Oh, that was today.
I missed the QWOP talk. I'm going home.
cooperation.
Jeez.
Do you guys know-
Tell me about the QWOP talk.
I will.
I have a QWOP question later, but we.
Oh, you can ask your co-op question.
Do you guys know if RoboQuop is actually at this show?
Oh,
He didn't mention it.
the guy after the co-op talk was that guy, Doug Wilson.
Doug
He
Yeah,
didn't
Doug
mention
Wilson.
it.
Okay, you know what RoboQuop is,
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
Well, the readers may
The
not
people
know.
at home, so the guy who made Johann Sebastian Joust made a hack to QWOP where you strap move controllers to your legs, and then those map to QWONP. So you have to in fact walk around to make a QWOP guy walk. But
in
I'm sure
clearly
there's
a way that has nothing to do with actual walking.
there's no mapping in that way at all. So
Walk to make QWOP guy walk.
you
is
walk,
a
yeah, you
good
walk
sentence.
walk to make QWOP guy walk. Walk to make QWOP guy walk. Anyway, I'd heard that it might be around.
Yeah,
It probably
we should
will
find
be.
out.
I mean, they said they're going to have like JS Joust on the show floor, so
Yeah.
maybe they'll do that
I think
too.
multiplayer QWOP is here, which I haven't done.
Well, just wait a
But
couple days.
I actually
Yeah.
I loaded up multiplayer co-op the other day and tried to do it myself. It's versus co-op, and I tried to it's two co-op guys at the same time in horizontal split screen, and I actually got a few paces doing both of them on my own, but it gets so hard because it's even twitchier than regular co-op. I assume because it's doing more physics calculations at the same time, and the guys get out of sync even if you're hitting, because you know, Nick, the basic loop of playing co-op.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, just even eventually sort of microscopic missteps in
Yeah, it's
timing
chaos
is gonna yeah.
Sorry, just microscopic imperfections. That's all.
In the skin.
I know. I'm
Um,
laughing. I'm laughing.
Anyway,
I'm laughing. What do you want?
I'm laughing.
I want to hear you tie what we were talking about back to QWOP.
wait. So anyway,
Yeah. No,
Wait,
Steve,
Nick,
seriously,
actually,
I was.
when you're here, we need to play co-op, or competitive co-op, I guess it is.
Competitive
I don't
QWOP.
know.
I
we
prefer
need to-
co-op QWOP.
We need to settle the score.
Oh
Versus
yeah,
co-op.
yeah. From the great.
The great co-op off.
We did the off from the Great QWOP-Off.
Well, that's why I came. That was it. All right. Yep.
And he's Nick Breckon.
Yeah. Thanks for coming, Nick.
So why are we talking
You're
about
welcome.
QWOP?
Well, because he was
I
starting
don't
to...
No, Steve knows why we're talking about
Bring us
QWOP.
back. Bring us back. Bring us back to where we were.
So the principle that the author of the book talks about is you can either say that sounds hard and I'm going to ignore it, or you can say that sounds hard and I'm going to take the first step to eventually understand it and be more self-sufficient. And so the QWOP guy in his talk was talking about, you know, the games that he had made and stuff, but he was also talking about how he didn't put QWOP on like a standard Flash portal that, you know, is owned and run by somebody else and they get all the ad revenue and all that stuff. He just made his own website and he put one game on it and then another and another until he basically had his own, you know, collection of games. And he has to deal with all the bandwidth stuff and all the server backend and stuff. But he was arguing for why there are a lot of advantages to that, because you're not giving somebody else all the profit for the games that you're making, and you actually get credit as an individual. And he put up this list of basically why people don't do that, and it was all like, it's hard, I don't know how, you know, like, and
he forced himself to learn it.
Yeah, and he was basically like, yeah, it is hard, and I didn't know how either, but there are all these advantages to being self-sufficient as someone making web content. And I thought it reminded me of that at the time, so bringing it back up just was interesting.
The Indie Game Summit is super businessy, apparently.
I didn't find that to be the case.
Well, I know, just the three things you've brought up have been about that.
Have been more about
like how promotions,
and
sales.
Oh yeah, but the QWOP thing doesn't. I mean,
no, I mean
that was entirely
one
like
aspect.
a philosophical thing, though. He didn't go into actually the logistics of any of that stuff. It was.
He did show a lot of graphs of like people playing different games over time, and
that's true.
Compared to
it was
like,
it was a small proportion of the
yeah,
talk,
yeah. Well, I mean, and there was that other talk that were you there for the guy talking about like being an indie developer without going insane?
Yeah.
That was pretty much all business.
It was
stuff.
Quality of life stuff. Yeah.
Which I mean, that's cool,
No,
right? Because I mean,
it was,
you
actually,
can go.
I like that talk.
Yeah, you can go there and you can just talk about a bunch of high level, you know, creative stuff, or you can go to the Indie Game Summit and talk about how to actually be successful with the game ideas that you have. And I think that's pretty cool about it.
That's really great.
Yeah. And they're both really well represented. I've been impressed so far. So.
Mm-hmm.
And you're Nick.
5 minutes of talking about Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. This makes me really happy that we were going to do a book podcast.
Yeah,
I'm so excited.
About it.
Oh
I'm
my
really
gosh, I'm so excited.
Do you guys have a good name for it yet?
No.
Book podcast.
Oh, booking, potting.
Well, it's book podcast.
Reading.
A book podcast.
Book cool, book
game.
gold. Terrible.
Nick Breckon.
Cool.
Yeah, no, that is what it's called, though. It's called Cool Book, a book podcast. A podcast for readers.
We haven't even, it's so funny, we haven't even really started talking about what we're going to call it.
No.
If you guys have any
it's
ideas.
probably book gold cast.
I want you to send me one idea a day.
For the rest of your life.
I am our email until
I'm just going to use that web form that you made.
The Jeff Goldblum name generator?
Yeah, just replace one word with book.
That's fine.
Each time.
You might find something in there.
Book Blast Bart Gold.
Bart.
I don't know. One of the guys on NeoGAF made a Goldblum generator, and the word Bart was added in it, which is not. That's not a.
It's not canonical.
No, I don't know.
Bloom term.
We're really big on canon here.
Bloom term. TM.
Yeah.
What the fuck have you
Nick,
been up to?
I was going
Nick?
to say, Nick, what are you up? I was exactly just going to ask that. Thank you,
You
Steve.
guys are so on the same wavelength tonight. This is fascinating to me.
Stop being fascinated.
No, I can't.
Stop stroking your beard. Stop stroking.
I don't know. I've been at Bethesda Softworks with the soft games making.
You heard that the more you play with them, the bigger they get?
Jesus.
Is that fact or fiction?
You know what blew me away?
That is an official.
Yeah.
Did you know that that before Epic Games moved, when they were in Rockville, Maryland, they were called Potomac Computer Games, which blew me away when I learned this, because there is a reality where Bethesda Softworks could exist next to Potomac Computer Games, which is just like, it's really sad that that didn't exist.
I think Potomac. I can't even say.
I know, it's really hard to say.
Potomac
Computer Games.
It is a fantastic
like
name, though.
It's
Guys,
pretty good.
We need a new name. Epic MegaGames.
I know.
Potomac Computer Games sounds too much like.
Well, that is
that's
really
some
good
nerd
because
shit.
because Epic MegaGames, until Nick told me that, I assumed their first name was Epic MegaGames, which you can easily imagine some like
We
late
need to
teenage
move.
whatever
Yeah,
just
but it's-
coming up with as the first thing out of nowhere. Just oh man, I'm gonna he starts making the bagged discs in his
Right,
bedroom and he writes Epic MegaGames.
Potomac
on
Computer
it.
Games.
I know.
We sound way too much like a mid-'80s computer game company. We need to sound like something of
British,
this era.
Right,
So
yeah.
let's call ourselves Epic MegaGames. Timeless. And then a few years later, oh man, we sound like,
I had no idea.
When did
that
they drop the Mega Games?
Like late 90s.
3D.
No, it was
Around
it was-
2000 maybe.
Yeah, it was post.
Because the first Unreal was an Epic Mega Game, I believe.
Yeah, I didn't
but the
play
first
the
Unreal
first
was less than
Unreal.
90
I didn't
days.
play
Well, but,
Unreal.
like the
anything
Unreal
until
Tournament games were Mega Games as well. I
Oh, they
think,
were?
I think they dropped it pretty shortly before Gears. Like I think it was like 2004 or 5.
Maybe they
Wow.
faded it out of existence.
Yeah.
Because I
The
remember
Mega
playing Unreal
Game
Tournament.
slowly decreases in the logo. It's still actually there. But it's
They're
just
probably
some
still
pixel.
registered as that.
I'm sure that somebody could look it up on fucking Wikipedia right now and we could discover
No,
it.
I think we should keep
It's
arguing about
clearly
it
based on the tradition
nothing.
of names, though. It clearly, the 80s was the Potomac Computer Games.
Right,
The 90s is Epic Mega Games. And they're like,
2000s.
just
yeah.
Epic now, 2000s. Yeah. And now they're going to be called EG or something.
Or just like a delta sign with a thing.
Yeah.
It's gonna
Yeah.
be Epic Apps.
There is a. I
It'll just be
saw-
E with like a winking emoticon or like a D smiley face. Ugh. What?
I saw a giant version of Infinity Blade in a photograph. About
What does that mean? A giant version?
You're
I
fucking
saw-
high right now.
I was trying to bring it back to
Giant
GDC. Let's just
version of Infinity
move on.
Blade
In a photograph. Great.
Do you think internet? I'd
Anyway.
say internet.
Have you
No,
ever
there's nowhere I was
had a
going.
day-
Nowhere I was at. I was fishing for
It's cool that you saw that
information.
giant picture in a photograph. Yeah?
Of Infinity Blade.
We're gonna talk about Dota.
Were your hands like?
Oh, man!
Oh,
You're right
Nick
here.
and Sean are in the same room now, and they can talk about
I
Dota.
played Dota last night with.
did you really?
With a reader actually.
You took Nick's advice.
A reader who aped something from the Progress Cast as his Steam handle, Throaty Timber. And
That's me.
Nick Herman from Telltale, a friend of
pretty
Nick
gross
Herman's,
phrase.
and then a pickup guy. And I said this last night to you guys, but those guys took such good care of me. They're like, Lich, maybe you don't want to stand there, Lich. Maybe. Just move back. Hey, Lich, use your chain frost.
I'm glad they referred to you as Lich.
They
No,
just
that-
call-
that- everybody
and these
does
are my
that.
friends.
That's
like,
every-
these are people
everything,
who
every
know
game.
me as a person. Like, Lich, hey, I
Hey, Demon Knight. Hey, Demon Knight.
I
It's like,
noticed
what?
you have 5,000 gold. Hey. And look, it was the complete opposite of what you would expect from the Dota community.
Right.
They're just like so. It was baby's first Dota. It was so nice. They were so. Yeah, we won. It was great.
They were just
we
such,
played a good
they were
team
just such
too.
giving partners.
But it's like I felt like the nicer they were to me, the more they just wanted to call me a slur. You know what I mean?
felt like
I
it
felt
was
like just
once
nicer.
the other shoe was just getting ratcheted up.
right.
So when it finally falls, it's plummeting 80 stories.
Exactly.
onto your head.
exactly
You'll actually
how
just
it
be
felt.
silently banned at some point. It's like,
Yeah. Oof. And you were texting me, and Steve, you were texting and calling me at the time, and I was trying to cook dinner. I was like, okay. I came home and I was like, I
This
need
is
to
a good
decompress.
image. Hey Lich, maybe you want to spend a bit of that money. Phone, pot bubbling over on the stove. Oh my
Really
god.
poor choice. Because I was at the office and then Nick Herman was there and I was like, hey Nick, I have a little Dota a little while when I get home. Like I'm gonna need to chill out before I go out and I want to eat some dinner and I just want to decompress before I
Yeah,
go
because
meet
Dota's a
Steve.
total
I
chill
want to
out.
decompress
Yeah,
with the
it's-
most stressful game I can think of.
Yeah, and now I've got my wrist hurts. You said you had you.
Oh my god!
Do you
Yeah, I had
Dota
a Dota
hands?
hand.
Oh, you had Dota
I had
hand?
literally, it put me out of action for like a week. Like
Jesus.
It really hurts. I went to the
Wait, why?
For
Because
what?
it's like, is it really,
man.
you have to click constantly?
You have to
or
click
something?
constantly.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
part of the strategy is clicking constantly. So
but
you
not just clicking constantly.
seriously, so
though,
your
like-
guy doesn't
like
accidentally kill something at a turn.
micro movements with the mouse though, because you have to move the screen with mouse, to the edge of the screen.
Right.
You can't really use the keyboard because your left hand has to be on hotkeys. So
Right.
You're just doing all these micro movements and then clicking like 1,000 times per minute, and it's just like it translates into just
God,
your
that sounds
hand.
like
He says
hell.
like 1,000 times per minute.
No, it's really fun, actually.
Yeah, no, it's
No,
it's
no, no.
game.
He says like 1,000 times per minute. I bet you click 1,000 times per minute.
Some people probably.
I
do.
bet people are
There's
just
a
like,
dude.
yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, I don't know. People like it. I've never played it.
Uh-oh.
I've never heard
Do you play-
anything.
do you
I've
play
never heard anything that sounds attractive about this game on any level. Not because I just heard, yeah, everybody's gonna call you all the worst names in the city. You're a piece of shit, and you're gonna lose constantly. And now it's like, oh yeah, and you'll be physically deformed and mangled by it. What?
So really, it's really good.
Do you play multi games ever?
I play like co-op stuff. I mean, I've had.
Or like competitive multi?
We played a bunch of Brink when that came out.
I've had phases where I've
I would
done straight
really
up
like to know what
co-op
you think about
or
this game.
co-op
I sent you a
multi
beta.
or just like competitive stuff. Like I was into like Gears of War 1 competitive for a while, and like Counter-Strike and stuff. But it's always just a phase. Like I never stick with anything for very long.
It's where my phases may be longer than yours, but it's the same way. We'll see. But I'm in deep with Dota right now.
You're just gonna have a
Definitely
fucking
not
bloody stump for a right hand before it's long.
I had this dream. I went to bed.
Just picturing like tendons like
after we hung
bursting
out.
out of your fucking skin horribly.
I had a dream
Just
that my
David
thumb
Cronenberg
was
shit going on.
deformed. Actually, I had a dream last night that my thumb was deformed, and somebody kept throwing me a football that I couldn't catch.
Hey, Lich, catch the ball, bitch. Hey, Lich. I can't do it. I gotta make pasta. Hey, Lich.
The football would hit me in the face because my thumb wouldn't open enough, and then I woke up, my wrist was really hurting because of Dota.
In your dream, you were.
Well, I think I went to
Dota?
sleep and I was starting to get wrist inflammation from playing Dota, and then in my dream, my body interpreted that as your wrist. I'm going to just manifest that into a
Or it's
dream
just
where a
your
guy's
hand-
throwing a football at your face and you can't catch it, and it kept hitting me in the face, and then the earthquake woke me up.
That's just like playing Dota.
In real
It's not
life.
like all
In real
of that.
life.
It's just getting
So I
hit in the face.
experienced the earthquake, which sucked, and then my wrist hurt for the rest of the day. So Dota,
In
play
conclusion, play it.
Yeah,
It's pretty
good.
great.
Have fun.
What's your hero? Who do you play?
I play Lena. Yeah.
What's Lena's deal?
She has a super powerful nuke. Oh god.
No, go,
I sound
go,
Dota.
go.
Yeah, no,
I'm here.
She's a
I'm
ganker,
with
you know. She ganks. You have to wander around and like, you know. I mean, it's basically a really easy hero to get into, like initially.
What
and
the
then-
hell happened to you, Nick? Come on, you're so sad. It's really an easy hero. It's fine.
no,
she
it's kinda
ganks.
lame.
Oh well.
She's got this nuke.
Well, I'm trying to branch out, but then I always
just-
fall back on Lena because I want to be good, you know. But
Yeah.
you try and diversify,
Yeah.
and then you lose.
One competitive game that I do play and have spent some time playing is Street Fighter, and I'm just saying this because
Yeah,
it reminds
it's
me
similar.
of like
You have your one guy.
like
you're
I
really
can
good at,
only
and then
play
you- yeah.
quarter circle characters, and like I have like 2 or 3 characters that I'm pretty good with, and I'll be like, I'll try Chun-Li or something, and then I'm like, oh nope, and I'll just go back to the thing that I can kind of win sometimes with.
Yeah.
Well, JP, we were hanging out with JP last night, and he was basically asking
JP
Point
LeBron in
blank.
front of the show.
JP LeBreton, right? He works at Double Fine. He was on the show before once, and
He and I used to work together too.
oh, yeah, of course. And he was saying, so what do I actually have to do? What steps should I take
Oh, yeah, this is
if I
right.
actually want to become good at StarCraft 2? Like,
Mhm.
what should I actually do? And it's actually a really
Interesting.
difficult question to answer. And in the case of that game in particular, I mean, I actually recommended what Nick and I did. Nick and I, for several months, actually pretty much played that game every night together, but 2v2. So you aren't just kind of just constantly, repeatedly throwing yourself into the grinder just to get spit out again in 1v1.
Mhm.
But the reason I bring it up in with respect to what you guys were talking about is that when I play that game, I really have only ever played as Protoss. At least in multiplayer. In single player, it is easy. It doesn't make any difference. But in multiplayer, I've only ever played a Protoss. And so whenever I choose a different race, it's just a massacre. Like I'm like a baby. I'm a child. Because Nick and I got to the point, what did we get up to? Like silver? Gold?
We
I think
we
had
maxed at
platinum at one
diamond or
point,
platinum.
actually.
Yeah, we
you
hit the
guys
top
were, I remember
tier.
tracking via Twitter.
Yeah.
You guys were really good.
And so we got to the point where like on at least a fundamental level, I understood the mechanics of that game really well, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like relative to
Well, the other
just
thing we were doing is
average-
watching professional play.
No, we were constantly watching professional play and commentary. But what I'm saying is, and in those cases, I was watching obviously every matchup you could think of: Terran versus Terran, Terran versus Zerg, Terran versus Protoss, blah blah blah, every combination. and I would play the game. I understood how all it works. I understood what would happen when an opponent was playing Terran, and he would attack, and this and that. And yet, any time I tried to play anything other than Protoss, I mean, I might as well just have never heard of StarCraft before.
Yeah.
Like, it would have made no difference if I had any experience with StarCraft at all. That's how alien it felt. And so when someone like JP, when he says, what do I do to get good at StarCraft? I remember what it's like when I play a race that isn't Protoss, and then I'm just, oh my God, I've gotten to Platinum League, and I don't even know how I would start learning a different race. Like, what can I possibly tell this guy who doesn't even play, who's never even played StarCraft to begin with?
Right.
It's just impossible.
Yeah.
I feel like the only reason I even have I even was able to become decent in StarCraft is because I played StarCraft 1 back when I was in college. You know, when that game was more current. And
I mean, it's almost like learning a language or being good at drawing or something. Whereas, like, in a lot of cases, like, all right, hey, I'm 30.
right.
How do I learn
How do I-
Italian?
step one.
Start talking to Italian people when you were 8. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
sorry, you know?
Or just be ready to kill yourself for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
You're gonna. It's
Yeah,
gonna,
or pretend you're 8 now and
Right.
get ready to be good at Italian in about 10 years.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
an opportunity. It's also something I brought up to JP.
Yeah.
There's it's a big opportunity cost issue.
You wrote an email to him about
No, I brought it up. That's what I
Oh.
was
He was sitting there.
Yeah, you were,
I thought no,
I sent a
you were-
missive about the
I thought
opportunity
you said
cost.
something I
Yeah.
wrote up to JP, and I'm like, this continued after?
Well, what happened, and this is the thing that actually has made me really self-conscious, is that around the time I started playing Dota, Jake started playing the banjo. And now Jake can play the banjo a little bit. And I hear him like in his room, and it sounds like music. And I'm just getting called a faggot by a stranger. And I feel- so, you have to pick wisely.
Yeah, well, because on some level, the main part of the answer to that question is spend a fuckload of time playing
Yeah.
StarCraft.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like,
Right.
or Dota, or whatever. And it's like, well, you can get good at an instrument or a video game.
Wah, wah.
But unless you have twice as much time, it's not going to be both.
Yeah.
There was an interesting, like, the way that you described it to him was like, take everything that matters to you in your life and put it on a table and just say, which one of these am I going to delete and replace with StarCraft? And I was like, that's a pretty good, it's a sacrifice. Like, what do I spend time on? Hopefully it's like, oh yeah, I do spend 2 hours a night just watching reality TV. I guess I'll swap that out. Because otherwise,
That's an acceptable StarCraft
Yeah.
swap.
Yeah.
QWOP swap.
I do have this job.
QWOP does fit in the category of, you want to get good at QWOP? All right, make your lists.
Which you
know.
guys did.
Yep.
But I'll always have that. I'll always have that QWOP facility. That's something that'll stick
That'll
with me.
come back.
Yeah.
That'll
It's like-
pay dividends.
Every few months, I actually load up QWOP just to make sure I've still got it.
Still got it.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
When
Is
you
it like
started
riding a
hitting-
bike?
It's not quite like riding a bike, but
What
I
if
can,
they
It's
made
not
a
at all
QWOP
like
that-
riding a bike.
No, but
What if they
It's
made a
the
QWOP that you
least
had to
like
ride a
riding a
bike?
no, but I can still,
Think about it.
after a couple
I
tries.
can't tell if Chris is
After-
I am
wandering
thinking
in the
about it
realm
now.
of satire here, or
No, I'm being serious. Like, after a couple tries, I can get up to about 60 meters or so, just after a few tries.
Do you get far enough that you
I
can hear the
remember
music?
talking about QWOP
Is that like, is that,
What?
you,
I get up to 60 meters.
you play until you start hearing the little tinkling of the Chariots of Fire song, and like, still got it. And
Yeah,
close
yeah.
it down.
But
Like,
once I get to the point where I can get a few dozen meters, I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, cool, I still got this. I'm good for another few months.
with your schedule, Nate, do you play? Are you playing games much, or is it pretty much Dota and Softworks?
I wasn't playing games much around like Skyrim launch, but now I'm sort of catching up.
Mhm.
Not really catching up, just playing old
Did you guys
things.
just stop playing StarCraft? Because you were playing it a fuck ton
Yeah,
for a
what's
while, and
weird
you
is
got really
we
good
just,
at
we
it.
just stopped. Like
It was
that.
in sync. It was
It wasn't
just
even
one of those
deliberate.
things where it was like,
It
all
was
right,
just one
enough.
night, neither of us said, hey, you want to play StarCraft?
Yeah.
And
And that
we
was
just
it.
never played it. We have not played it
Yeah,
since.
that sounds
That
like a
happens
lot of
all the
people's
time, though.
experience with
Yeah.
like World of Warcraft or something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I was obsessed with it for years, and I was just like, nope,
Yep.
and never touched it again.
But I mean, I think an answer to that question, like, how do you get good at things? Well, like, you play with somebody who makes the learning process fun anyway.
Right, exactly.
Like,
I mean,
that's
especially
really the
'cause
solution.
That was after the point where you'd moved to the other side of the country, and so we didn't live in proximity to each
Yeah.
other anymore. Well, that was actually when I was in Boston. So I was in Boston, and you were in Maryland.
Yeah.
And so that was really like, for that period of time, that was a pretty big part of how we stayed in contact. Was
Yeah.
just we would
Well, and
every
you guys
night we'd get on
were
there. And
same time zone and everything.
yeah,
which
same time
helped.
zone. We had voice chat, and so it was actually. I mean, it was really fun, even though we haven't done it in a while. But that was actually really. I enjoyed that a great deal.
Yeah.
And we got really good. I mean, we actually got way up there in the. I mean, we'd enter long stretches of time where we would just be sitting at number 1 in our league for ages, or we'd be at the very bottom and end up in some weird like
The math of
nether
that
realm
bracket system
of where the math
miserable.
just would not allow us to get no matter what. But it was a good experience of actually feeling like I was getting better at something, even if it's a worthless thing, and also just hanging out with a friend on the internet.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, there aren't a lot of things that there aren't a lot of activities that, well, I guess on some level, that people that's true of. You know, like I'm thinking of like
especially
when you're
especially purely recreational.
yeah,
activities.
but I'm thinking like when you're like if you're a kid and you hang out with your friends and you like skateboard while you hang out, it's like, oh yeah, now we can do way more sweet skate tricks, and also we hung out, you know, like, which is interesting because in a lot of cases you hang out with somebody, it's just like, yep, we went to a bar,
Right.
we talked, and then we went home, you know, and that's
Or
obviously that's good, but
I know. Sorry, I was gonna be mean, but I'm not.
or you hang out with your friends and talk, and then you get a podcast that makes hundreds of thousands of dollars.
No, I was just going to self-awarely say that it's amusing that your adult example is 2 people sitting at PCs controlling science fiction alien armies in epic battle. It's cool.
But there is a dearth of things like that you can hang out and get better at something. I mean, you know, there are like, I mean, other than like, there's sort of like hobby sport communities of like people who all go to the same rock climbing gym or like yoga
or you can
things
go
like
golfing
this.
together or whatever. But
Yep.
Or you can, you know, call your friend a Lich. All the time.
Lich ought to have my mana.
Hey, Lich.
Hey, Lich. If Nick starts calling me Lich at the office, that's the line. That's when I'm out of Dota.
The usage of Lich as a name rather than as a noun, rather than saying a Lich, like
It
the
took
fact
you
that
a
it's just,
while for you to get your head around
It
that.
really did.
So what's his name? Lich. I understand he's a Lich.
There are a lot of heroes like that. There's Drow. What's the other one that
There is just wizard in guy, like right, like not guy.
It's also just wizard and guy.
Oh, wizard and guy.
But there's also
Wizard
it's so
and
fun.
wizard
The
and
game-
guy
I mean, that's a really
alternately wizardin guy.
That's what that was my initial. That was my first.
in isn't actually an I short for ing.
Right.
But creatively, that
Wizard
game
and guy.
has.
Me too.
It feels like the creative content of Dota. They decided to just say fuck it and not put up any sort of rules for how they're going to name people, the tone in which that character is going to be presented. Some guys are just hardcore, like bloody monsters, and other people are jokey idiots, like from a Saturday morning cartoon. They just
Well, that's something
really
that I
seem
really
to not
associate
care.
with modern era Blizzard, which that game is directly evolved from.
Yeah,
It's true.
You know, it's actually something that I don't like about World of Warcraft is just how completely all over the place and
Tonally
inconsistent that shit
schizophrenic
is.
it is.
Right.
Yeah.
I was basically just Shrek.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's
Right.
exactly correct.
But
yeah.
it's weird.
Well, what's weird about it is that they don't always translate. I mean, like, there's a huge demon guy, but he can just be, like, you know, complete garbage. Like, you know.
You'd
It's
expect
like,
a huge demon guy to be super
Well,
cool.
I mean, it's you know, to an extent.
But then-
Like, I mean, they don't represent
Right.
anything about what they actually are. I mean, they're just it's just a avatar.
Yeah, well, games have
For
that. Games have
stats.
that problem all over the place. You know, like you'll be playing a fucking, I don't know if this is still true, but I suspect it is. Final Fantasy game where some guy has some attack where it's just he fucking leaps into the air 18 times, has 14 javelins that he stabs into the other guy's eye, and then it's like
Miss.
14 points of damage, and the guy just
Miss,
like
yeah.
boop, boop, boop. It's
Right.
just that shit's just
Yeah.
all over the place in video games. It's absurd.
Is it?
Nope.
Oh.
I agree with Chris.
Okay. Anyway,
I'm also playing Super Black Bass on a Super NES.
What?
You've been wanting to talk about Super Black Bass for multiple
Maybe I'll hold it
episodes.
back. But gosh, it's
What happened, Nick?
Huh? I just remembered I'm replaying Super Metroid right now.
Oh, I'm also playing
Jake.
Super Metroid.
Really?
Yeah.
And Sean's playing Super Black Bass. First, I want to talk about Super Black Bass for a second. Because,
I'll go.
Yeah, you had a great observation, which I always thought was incredibly
wow, I don't remember what that was.
You don't? I was
just excited by the fact that it had Mode 7 graphics.
It does have
that's-
much. Yeah, it's really
When you cast
Super
when you
Nintendo.
but when you cast the lure, it's this actual like first person lure cam where the Mode 7 like goes up into the lake. It's awesome. It looks
is
really nice.
awesome.
It's really
What's
it's really
funny
good
is-
use of Mode
is
7. The seventh mode.
For a fishing game.
when I was in like whenever that game came out, I was in like the second grade, and my dad's really like a sportsman, outdoors guy, and therefore all my buddies, our dads knew each other, or they worked together, so they were all the same type of guy. So eventually somebody was purchased Super Black Bass as a present because we'd have to go fishing with their dads. And I actually grew up and loved to fish and still fish. Anyway, we all became obsessed with the game because catching a fish is really hard in the game, especially when you're 8. So it was a triumph. I remember this kid, Scotty, called me, I caught a fish! Because we would play this game for hours and not be able to catch fish. And I probably put 40, 50 hours into the game. And then I've now, with my adult brain, realized that each lake is actually just a level, and there's probably 10 lakes, but I never got past the second lake. So now with my adult faculties, I'm incredibly excited to see how deep this game goes.
Yeah.
So I sit down to play Super Black Bass when I realize that it's just been sitting on our Mac Mini for 6 months. And I'm playing for a while, and I look over at Jake, who's just really inspecting the UI and sort of the execution of the game. And I can't remember exactly the sentence you said, but it was like, somebody really cared about this game. And it's true. It's a really well-crafted game.
Sure.
Like, just from a... Like, it doesn't feel like a lot of corners were cut.
Well, also, it's a Super Nintendo game, so it's kind of on the cusp of this, but it's got the weird, like... When DOS was not the only operating system you could end up having running on your computer, and people made weird simulation games, Super Black Bass, it's an SNES game, but it is like, all right, now I'm in the lake mode where I'm steering my boat around. Okay, now I'm in the part where the guy swings the reel back and forth. It's just a completely different screen, completely different art, completely different UI treatment, completely different controls. Okay, now the lure is flying into the lake, also completely different. Okay, now we've cut to the camera where the lure is sitting in the lake, and it's like, what is this? Like... no one
like
makes anything like that anymore. It's really hilarious. Yeah, there's 6 modes, but it is just you throw a string with a thing onto it into the water, and then a fish bites it. But it is just like it's
Major Havoc. Did you ever play that?
No.
Major Havoc is really cool.
Major Havoc is crazy.
interesting.
Like it's a vector-based.
It's like
arcade
1981.
Game. Yeah, it's really early, and it starts off when you're in space and you're shooting asteroids and stuff, right? And then
it's sort of a little bit reminiscent of like Tempest. You don't go around in a circle, but it's perspective like that, and asteroids are coming towards you.
And then if you successfully complete that mode, it seamlessly goes into this sequence where you have to land the craft on a base, but because it's vector, your ship just smoothly transitions from
it
being
tweens.
It just tweens right into from this perspective mode into a straight ahead 2D
like a side
view. And then you land on the thing.
And it's kind of like a moonlander. You land on the platform.
Like a sort of inertia-based landing thing. And then your guy jumps out.
And
this is all seamless.
And it zooms in further because now it's like man scale instead of spaceship scale.
And it zooms into your guy, and then your guy is in this base, and then it's just sort of a 2D side-scrolling platformer thing inside this base where you're running around with the guy. And all of this stuff, there's never any cut.
And it's like you go into the base and you have to like hit the self-destruct and come back out, and you come back out, and you get back in the spaceship, and then it just zooms out, and it just goes back out into space completely seamlessly, no cuts.
That's pretty much the flow of Super Black Bass.
Yeah, almost exactly.
When the guy goes into the spaceship.
Right, you're shooting the asteroids, and then they catch a bluegill.
Yeah, it's pretty... Because this bluegill is small for this lake. And you
It's so judgmental, yeah.
That's something that is interesting, replaying or playing for the first time games from that, well, I guess more replaying, games that you played when you were that age.
Right.
And now you have the perspective to be like, oh, these are levels, and there's gating where I have to hit this goal to get to the next level and stuff, which you had no context for when you were
just had no
8.
concept
You're like,
of.
This is fishing.
It was just a blind squirrel trying to find his, and you find a nut, and then you go again.
Because I'll play like on Virtual Console for the Wii, I played like the original Legend of Zelda and Link to the Past and Super Metroid. And like the structure of it and the progression of it is super clear. It's like, okay, I do this to get to here to get to this to get.
But as a kid, you're like, I'm in a world and I have to do something, and maybe it's the thing that
you're like, what is this
thing?
I guess I'll go over here now, And it's interesting because I feel like in a lot of cases for games that weren't super linear, like when I was growing up, I played like Super Mario Brothers and Super Mario 2 and like Contra and stuff, and it's like, okay, go to the right,
walk a man in the direction that you
Right.
read.
Yeah, and so those, it's clear, like, okay, you go for it and then you finish the game. But other stuff that's more open, I just remember playing it and not making any progress.
Right.
You're just
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
just go around.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You
Castlevania
know?
games are the exact same thing.
And it's like, maybe you do find a dungeon and you're like, I guess there's a dungeon in here. You know, but you can't project far enough ahead to be like, oh, this is one dungeon of 8. So I need
Exactly,
to go here to go there to go there,
yeah.
and then I'll finish the game.
Well, Super Metroid is mind-blowing in regards to that. Like you'll just walk past dungeons that are just meant for like 5 hours down the line.
Yep.
And as a kid, you're just like, I know I was like looking at that, like, how do I get to that?
Right,
like, how do I go through that glass that's just going to be broken with a bomb that I get 6 hours from now? Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, it's just playing it now is just it's just, I don't understand, like, how... But it actually works, like, because you do backtrack, and then when you're backtracking, you see the thing, like, you solve the puzzle that solves the other thing. I mean, actually, it's
Super
fairly
Metroid is
coherent. But
genius.
I had never played Super Metroid as a kid. I played the original Metroid for a little bit, but I just couldn't get into it. I played Zelda and Mario to all hell, but playing Super Metroid now, that game is just destroying my brain. But not like the structure of it is amazing. Like obviously you can tell what everyone rips off, but also like the art is amazingly good for a Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
And like
Oh my
just
God.
the very beginning when you're escaping from the base and it starts just
The
tipping.
music
But the
is
tone of it is
The
also
tone.
it's the tone of it for a Nintendo first party game for the Super Nintendo is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Then, like, the
Almost
music.
for
Jesus Christ.
that whole
Nintendo
intro-
first party thing for any
Period.
generation.
Yeah,
like-
yeah,
Think
but
of
it's like
another time. I mean,
you
Metroid
just-
Prime, I think,
it's
kind of.
Yeah.
you can put it as a contemporary though to Super Mario World and Link to the Past, and then be like Super
it's
Metroid. Like
outrageous,
that, the
I know.
game just opens with a shattered science facility and 2 corpses on the ground.
That's
Yeah.
still one of
What
the
in the
absolute.
Yeah.
fucking
That's one of the
hell?
absolute best game introductions.
It definitely
ever.
is.
I mean, ever.
Yeah,
It's
where it just says
incredible.
Nintendo and
It's
then goes
entirely
away.
in-game,
Metroid 3,
too, which
yeah,
is-
it's so good.
God, it's incredible.
There's a place pretty early on, right before one of the first major boss battles, where you finally sort of get into the weird organic sort of place where it's not just a rotted dead planet or a dead ship, but it starts having sort of weird bubbly creepy shit.
Yeah.
And there's some fangs and stuff, and it's weird. But then you see this just sort of collection of pixels, and you don't know what it is. And then you walk stand as close to it, and then it turns out that it's a bunch of bugs who then like
Yes.
all crawl out of the screen, and then there's
Yeah.
just the body of a previous bounty hunter there. And then
Yeah.
it's like silent, passive, environmental storytelling of that caliber in a Super Nintendo game just crushed
Yeah.
my brain. Like
It's
I
truly unbelievable.
I restored. I was playing
I-
an emulator, and I just went back and played through that again because it's
Yeah.
like, what is this?
I
Oh my
didn't.
God.
I didn't play that game when I was growing up either. For like, I had Super Nintendo. I just whatever. It's just
Yeah.
you can only buy so many games when you're a kid. And yeah, I played. I did a full playthrough of it for the first time when I was working on BioShock 2, and like, fucking blown away.
Did
You know,
anybody
like-
here play that game when they were a kid on the Super NES?
I did.
You did?
I think I pre-ordered it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
See,
Whoa,
It
Breckon ahead of the curve.
wasn't even
Yeah.
on my radar.
And at the
As a
time-
thing
I
that
don't think I
was-
knew.
as
I
a
don't
thing
think
that
I knew
was
Super
supposed to
Metroid
want.
existed even because I
Yeah.
like I was a huge Nintendo dork.
I definitely
right at
knew
that
it
time.
did because I had a Nintendo Power subscription, but it was just like I never got around to it.
Yep.
You know, and having played it when I was 27 or something, I was like pissed that I didn't play
Yep,
it when I was
yeah,
like,
exactly.
why didn't I have this?
What's funny is that I didn't. I mean, as you guys know, I didn't have consoles growing up, so I played that game at an odd time, which is when I was in high school. That was really the first time I kind of made the conscious decision to like go back and play earlier console stuff that I just never experienced before.
Yeah.
And I played that game. And what's really almost like shameful when I think about it is that my experience
You
playing
ass.
my experience playing Super Metroid that time, which was the first time I'd ever played it, was just totally bland. Like, I mean, it was great, it was awesome, I thought it was incredible, but just for purely mechanical like I engaged with that game on an entirely
Where
mechanical
you're like,
level.
sweet, I got the thing that shoots 3 lasers
Exactly. I was just I was old.
now, which is fucking sweet.
right. No, I know, but I mean, I played enough games. Like even coming from a PC background, like I played enough games to just intuit all of the structural elements of it in a way that a kid maybe wouldn't. But I wasn't really probably giving it like the emotional or just sort of atmospheric due that it deserved. I was just looking at it entirely as a mechanical experience and playing through it. And
You're looking at it kind of in a detached way.
exactly, it's very detached. That's exactly correct. And also, I was playing it at school, like in the computer lab, so it was not
I mean,
a
that
good.
doesn't help.
Right, exactly.
doesn't
It wasn't a
really
good
accept it,
environment.
yeah.
It wasn't a
Yeah.
good environment to play it. But so then that made it all the more.
Super NES in your computer lab?
No, it was just on an emulator.
Oh,
And so the
You pirated Super Metroid?
and so playing it
space pirate?
playing it later was like, oh man, nice. It was just all the more shocking to me, I guess, because I had played it sort of past the age where I had started thinking about games in a more critical way. Like that was at the time I was playing games like Thief, which were, I really actually spent a lot of time thinking about it in a more critical way. But that one, just for some reason, it didn't hit me in that particular.
But the second playthrough.
The second playthrough just fucking killed me. I couldn't even believe it. It was incredible. It was the same reaction all you guys described, right? It was just, I was noticing those little details left and right, and just, especially that introductory sequence, I remember just really hit me hard.
Yep. The whole beginning, just when the ship lands on the planet and then it's just raining and there's no music at all until you get like 3 levels deep.
It's so good. Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean,
also
such a bold choice.
Yeah.
There's
It's
nothing.
There's
There's
so
no
crazy
enemies,
because like,
period. Like,
we're talking about all the tone and aesthetics of that game, but also just structurally and mechanically, that game is out of control.
Oh, it's
so
great.
just
Yeah.
good work, Super Metroid. Good work, Nintendo. Whichever group that is.
I think Super
It's
Black Bass came
RMB1,
out the
I
same
think.
week as Super Metroid, so that's
So your game was Super Black Bass.
yeah, I was.
I thought you were saying, so that's why Super Black Bass got overshadowed a little bit. Otherwise, it would be a classic.
Well, it's like, did you guys ever see the Mega 64 video about how Cabela comes out the same week as the new Halo game? And all the Cabela developers are just like, what the fuck is this? And they're calling up the GameStop and wondering why their game isn't getting the big stand-up. Sean was the guy. So like the one guy who went into the GameStop, do you guys have Super Black Bass?
It's like, hold on, let me look under these 4,000 copies.
exactly.
Let me look under these already returned used copies of Super Metroid.
I can't appreciate. I appreciate the game
mechanically.
mechanically so like.
You talking about Super Black Bass?
Seriously, I don't have
No, it's
to.
cool. Do it.
The thing is about that game is it makes me want to bump into the lead programmer in an airport and just have a 20-minute, 20-hour.
Well, because that guy would fucking die.
Well,
Because you'd be like, dude, Super Black Bass?
I have your Super Black Bass t-shirt on. You have the full like.
That was a
No, man, if you had the brown vest that said Bassin on the back.
It
Your
does.
fisherman's
No-
got a brown
no
vest.
We were
brown
talking about
games.
that. We were talking about if we could somehow figure out a way to license Super Black Bass through Idle Thumbs and then get the official Super Black
Make the
Bass
Bassin
vest
vest?
and
Yeah.
Bassin on the back. It's fucking cool. You would dig it, Steve. You'd really like it.
I am wearing a vest today.
If that
How
said
would I not
Bassin on the
like
back and was brown, that would be it. So we could make that happen.
I'll work
We
on
could
that.
fold it inside out, it looks like. Anyway, the thing is you have like 12 lures that you can then expand to 24.
Oh, I think it said
know
12
this is-
lords.
Lures.
Yeah.
Lures. But, this isn't going to be good.
So here's the thing about Super Black Bass.
The thing-
You've got 12 lures.
There's some. Okay.
You have to
So
go to a
it's on a
dungeon
day-night
to get each
cycle.
one.
It's on a.
When I was a kid, I did not even
This
fucking
sounds
realize.
so
I was
dumb
like,
when I
guess there's just
articulate it.
one lord.
I feel like a stoned guy in a dorm trying to explain to people why this is good. But it's on a day to night cycle, and the fish care about what time of day it
And
is.
then a day-night cycle?
Yeah, dude, this is intense shit, man.
That's
For a
the
Super
bomb.
NES game.
Super Black Bass.
It
man,
has a
that's legit.
real time. You only have this much time to catch fish, and they care what time it is. And if it's in the midday, if the water gets warmer and they go deeper, and then you have all these lures that either like are surface or like deep water lures, but they only go to that level of water depending on how you're like manipulating them. So it's like speed in which you reel something in makes things dive up and down. And then you can, it's just like a really complex game. So you can figure out all the behaviors for all the things
So it's
you
an
have.
actual simulation. It's a legit simulation.
But it doesn't message any of these things.
But that's
Which is
right.
That's what I was trying to say.
That's
It's
what
like
simulation is all about.
it is
Yeah,
the most.
exactly,
It's
yeah.
a classic, crazy, supermodal sim game that you would probably actually play on your like Hercules graphics monitor PC. But it's on Super Nintendo. It's on the same platform
Yeah.
that you play.
Well, stuff like that's really interesting
Fucking-
when it pops up. I
Yeah.
mean, that's almost how I feel to some
I
degree
just feel like
about.
there's a lot of love in the game. Is what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say.
no, that's actually really cool.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
I find that's
Also, it's the thing that Brendon Chung cut out of Adam Zombie Smasher.
well, it's got to be. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be in the right game.
Yeah.
You know, like Adam Zombie Smasher. Adam Zombie Smasher.
Adam Zombie Smasher.
Well, that game is already a demonically hard game, so I can see why. Like, if that game was just the strategy element of it, I think it would be a
Right,
different.
but if
story.
Adam Zombie Smasher had come out on the Super Nintendo, it probably would have still had all the crazy stat man.
Well, that's how I felt when I played Populous on the Super Nintendo. It was just like
Yeah.
it just made no sense to me that was on the Super Nintendo,
Dude,
and it was
it's
actually
hilarious. All of all of
All
Bullfrog's games from
Yeah.
that era were on the Super Nintendo. I downloaded
And
a
all
ROM
Max's
because
games, too.
I had no access to it at the time. This was like 10 years later, but I downloaded a ROM of Syndicate on the Super Nintendo,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
and it's fucking weird.
Well, that shit is
Because it's
actually.
still isometric and you're still controlling
Right.
a squad, but you're using a Super Nintendo.
It actually makes the
controller.
systems harder for me to understand. Like
Yeah.
That's
when
exactly
they're,
how I
when they're
felt about
filtered
all
through that
Max's
interface.
games that did the
Yeah.
exact same thing.
Right.
Sim Life.
Yeah,
on the
Except-
Super
I just
Nintendo.
remember
Well,
thinking that
just destroyed me.
Sim branded games, because
Yeah.
I only had a Super NES that could run anything.
Well,
I always
Super
assumed that they were bad games because of the way they were like.
It's incomprehensible.
Right.
In that
Well,
system.
except that Super Nintendo SimCity was good.
SNES SimCity was good, but all
I was
other,
playing too much Sim Earth.
all the other ones are insane.
Oh Jesus! Don't play Sim Earth on a Super Nintendo.
I definitely
I didn't even know
rented
that
Sim
existed.
Earth.
That's what I was talking about. Yeah.
Sim Earth was
Yeah,
crazy.
Sim
I didn't even know that
oh
was
my
on
God.
console. I played that on the
Yeah.
Mac,
Sim Earth was
Apple II, I guess.
incomprehensible to me on PC. So
That was the one. Sim Earth was
It
the
kind of
one
is,
Max's game
in
that
all ways.
I could never get. I
What
played.
about Sim Life?
what about Streets of SimCity?
That wasn't even an actual Max's game, was it?
Well, you get to make a sweet muscle car and drive it around your city and shoot things.
Oh
What
my
about
God! I got that for
Simcopter?
Christmas one year, and I was so
What about
excited for
Dogs?
20 minutes. And then
Oh, no, there's no actual
Gay Pride.
dogs. Yeah,
Gay
what,
Pride Simcopter.
yeah. What about
We
that?
talked about that on the
Oh,
podcast.
Simcopter.
What about Mega Race, starring Lance Boyle? Come on, guys. We on top of this?
What are we doing?
We're taking a break. So I can drink some water and pee. Cut that part out, Chris. I'm gonna say it.
We're taking a break?
It's
Yeah.
20 an hour 24.
Yeah, let's-
50.
I think this might
Let's take a break.
the break might last 2 days.
Yeah. We've been going for an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Although
This is
we're
the
gonna cut
longest
some of
podcast we've recorded in probably well over a year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think last year's GDC cast was.
I don't
No,
remember
no.
it being great.
But I mean, there's 5 people on it. It's
I
gotta
don't.
be
I remember
longer.
that podcast really sucking, actually.
Sorry.
No, it wasn't because of you.
Jesus, fucking good thing we're ending
That
the
narrows
podcast
it down.
I think I
Who
might
was
have.
it?
Well, I mean, that
Might have been because of me. I was just really tired.
Well, it obviously wasn't because of me because I wasn't at GDC last year.
See?
There you go. We're cool, bro.
Oh, I see. I see what's going on. This is over. I quit.
It was actually because of me.
Guys, I got a job in Maryland. I gotta go.
But yeah, we're gonna do more GDC stuff over the rest of the week.
Yeah.
You guys are
And,
talking about maybe talking to some folks, and we'll just
Gonna
try
try,
and get anything
yeah.
we can get.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking to Nick Breckon for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, he'll be there.
He might. Yeah, Nick Breckon might say something
He
this
might.
week.
Yeah.
I'm Nick Breckon.
Oh, no,
I'm
Nick
Nick
Breckon.
Breckon.
I'm Nick 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 Breckon.
We're Nick Breckon.
We're all Nick Breckon here. Nick Breckon.
Well, thanks for listening.
Thank you,
I'm
Steve.
Nick Breckon.
Brother,
No.
I'm Nick Breckon.
Okay.
Oh, are we
No,
done?
no, 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 no.
No, but no.
What do we need?
All this
Who's
part will
this
be-
guy? I'm Nick Breckon. I don't know.
There wasn't that. That was an hour 26:35.
Well, it's really an
There's
hour 15 since we did the game.
Probably 7 minutes of good stuff in there.
Yeah.
We've never had 5 of us. How do we go?
We did in the live show. Oh no, but we didn't start with 5.
Because
of
it
us.
has to end with Nick.
Yeah, we're.
Does it?
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, we could just go clockwise. Just
Yeah, start with Chris. Yeah.
It didn't end. It never ended with Nick.
I know it did. It never did.
It does
It's a
now.
fucking lie.
That's the thing that's weird about
It's
it.
a
That it was. I'm pretty sure
goddamn
I'm Nick
lie.
Breckon and I'm Jake Rodkin.
Right,
No,
but why
it's
I
revisionist history.
But why, no, I'll tell you
Ending on
exactly
I'm
where it
Nick
comes
Breckon.
from.
Why?
This is where it comes from because when you send in that tape,
Yeah, it's from your tape.
you went and I'm Nick Breckon, and then I sat there and just said and I'm Nick Breckon like 1,000 times. to myself.
yeah.
Right.
That's where it came
Yeah, it's
from.
because
Yeah,
like,
that's
you
all
introduced
that
yourself
was
last
from-
on the
yeah.
live to tape Nick Breckon.
That's where it comes from. It's not just
Also,
out of
though,
the
even aside from
All
that,
right.
it's also you are the person who is a reveal in this cast. Like,
All right.
So we're
That's
going to
a
put
good-
in the
that's a good
timpani
point.
roll for sure before.
I'm Nick
I'm
Breckon.
Nick Breckon. Anyway, welcome to GDC, whatever.
So how about we start with Chris and then go clockwise?
Oh, how about we start with Chris and go clockwise?
Did someone say that before?
Yes.
I did.
Fuck.
We should do a whole
Fuck
podcast
you.
where somebody suggests the last thing that somebody
Yeah.
said.
Wait, you know what
We
we
should
should
do a whole
do?
podcast. That seems to be.
Whoa, that was crazy. That
Oh.
sounded like a crowd.
Oh, Jake
or something.
made this crazy sound effect. It sounds like the audience.
of guys.
Anyway, you know what we should do? We should record this conf grenade.
I'm going home. I'm Nick Breckon.